I know I'm not the only person, if you spend any time on social media, who's seen a lot of a trend recently for people in the fitness or gym community or whatever you want to call it. And it's of this term called optimal lifting, science based lifting. And it's been around for a while, right? It's not a new thing, but it is very clearly on the rise. And with this, optimal or perfect everything has shown up when it comes to training, diet, routine, and everything in between, sleep. I don't know how much sunshine you get. Here, I really want to find out what that means and kind of what the consequences of this stuff has been, good and bad. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike, and we're going to be going over what I think are the pros and cons of optimal bodybuilding and if it's really worth all that it's cracked up to be. So make sure to stay tuned and like the video if you actually like what I'm talking about. If you want me to talk about other things and research them, I have a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be fitness related, but that's primarily where I'm going to be. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it and yeah, let's have fun. So, firstly, I kind of want to define what we mean by when we say something is perfect or optimal for the gym, right? Especially in a fitness setting. And I would say that's more like getting everything as efficient as possible, right? Whether that's in your training, diet, et cetera, et cetera. And that also has to do with the results, right? No matter what people's idea of results are, examples somewhere around here, you're achieving that. Like that's working for you is part of the optimal process, right? It's the idea of maximizing these things and creating, you know, the perfect anything. And I think that has a lot of positives on this community. And I'm going to jump right into those. I would say the pro number one is um, progress, right? Everybody wants progress. And with being able to determine variables and to see what's working and what's not working in the scientific process, because at the end of the day, everything is pretty much a science. What works for most people and what doesn't. And in doing so, this allows a lot of good to happen. It brings this unique precision when it comes to needing every variable to work, whether it's reps in reserve, perceived effort, amount of sets, how many times a week you're working out, how many calories you're getting in the macronutrients, how many hours you're sleeping. There's so much that goes into it, and there's so much research on all of those different topics, much more than I really want to go into today. It's just kind of throwing a broad stroke over a lot of examples, right? And this also leads to a lot of focus in creating these things to work, right? You need to notice this, and you're not just going through the motions when you go to the gym. You are actively striving to make something better. And when you actively do that, you're going to see more progress than if you just go to the gym and kind of throw weight around. Another thing that works really well with that is when you're tracking variables, you can see the timeline of what's showing a trend of working and what isn't. For example, I've tried a lot of different movements and different calories, right? To see, oh, if I'm trying to gain weight, I check I'm eating 3,200 calories over the course of a week, and I see that I didn't gain anything. Well, that tells me that variable needs to change. In this case, it needs to go up by like 2 to 300 calories, right? Or if I'm changing a movement for my chest and I'm like, hey, I don't feel as sore, I don't feel very fatigued, that might tell me, hey, maybe I'm not getting enough volume or I'm not pushing myself hard enough, and that there's some variable in my training that needs to change. I would say the second major pro would have to do the accountability that happens here. When you're trying to be perfect, you don't really miss this stuff for anything. When you're trying to be optimal, you don't really take certain rest days unless it's part of your routine. If you're sick, you make up for it. If you miss something, you make up for it. It just is how it works. If I miss a day at the gym, right, I'm going to make that up on one of my days off. Truly, that just makes it work better and it makes it so that you don't lose anything. You know, when you're aiming to be perfect, there's not a whole lot you can miss, right? You can't miss calories. You can't miss the time frame that you want to actually be in the gym. You can't give yourself an excuse for it because you want to be as close to perfect as possible. And having an excuse doesn't really qualify for optimal or perfection. And this level of accountability can be a huge game changer in people who strive in the gym and people who do really well versus people who might not. Now, with these positive things and a lot of the backing in science and showing us how training has evolved, right? There are also plenty of bad things. And I would say the elephant in the room is how it impacts people on social media. I know, interesting, bold take for me. I'm brave. I'm very brave for this. Social media bad. The toxicity and contradictions is something you don't have to search very long for, especially if you're me and it's all you get on your social media. You'll find people who think that you're doing this wrong and you have the wrong rep range and this scientific study says this, but who cares about this study when this is more important? And it's a huge swinging of keyboards at one another, to not be too crude in what I would really call that. It's basically keyboard warrioring with a few extra steps and probably a lot more expletives. It has a huge view on how we view progress, how we view results should look like, how we think that everything should really look, because it's this very narrow lens that we see the world through. I don't know about you, but when I go and I look at people weightlifting or I look at people's progress in the gym, they look like they're done. They show you like a before picture maybe a couple years ago and they show themselves now and they look incredibly different. They have great genetics. They do this, that, and the third, and then all of a sudden questions arise. How did you get there? What did you do? What's your secret? And everybody has a secret. And I'm going to be real with you, none of them are right most of the time. They're going to tell you, hey, well, I did 8 backflips every day and I just happened to grow 22-inch arms from doing that. We could go into how ridiculous and stupid that way of thinking is, but I'll save you the overarching banter of me just complaining to you guys for 35 minutes, and we'll leave it at that. Basically, the things to take away is that social media is misleading. Um, don't believe everything that you hear. Do your own research. Yada yada yada. I'm not even going to get into the editing that people do and photoshops and all this other stuff and falsifying information. Just follow the rules. Don't believe everything you see, obviously. And let's move on to the what I would say is the next con of optimal bodybuilding. I would say that self doubt and contradictions are probably just as good as point as the actual idea of what social media does to you. And while it isn't as strong per se because it might fall under that category, I would say that it affects me and it probably affects a lot of you out there. Trying to chase perfection, that means you want to be efficient, right? And that would mean that you don't want to waste any of your time trying to find something perfect. You just want it to be perfect. The idea of doing this trial and error means that you're wasting your time when you should be doing optimal training and things should be perfect. And with that, there's always the risk of not feeling like things are good enough. Well, I have said that that's a positive. There's a lot of negative connotation with that. People with body dysmorphia, place study here about how body dysmorphia bad and it's on the rise. I think the percentage was somewhere around 10 to 12% of people who go to the gym. It's an ungodly number. You get kind of trapped in this idea of self criticism, and then the cycle continues of where you go from, I like what I'm doing. Maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was, even though I still like it. I see this person telling me to do the opposite, and I see a lot of people backing him. I start doing what he says. I like this. And then you just keep going in this never ending cycle. It puts you in this mental trap of rather than just sticking to what you like to do and what is also proven to work because you have researched it, that you see people who look incredible telling you to do something that is not incredible, and then you follow through with it because you want to make sure that you're not missing anything. And I guess the real thing is that when you get stuck in like thinking perfectly, you kind of don't notice that you yourself have already made a bunch of strides and you have done something for yourself. I can't tell you when I looked at a picture of myself like 2 to 3 years ago versus how I look now, I I wouldn't have known at all. I honestly would have thought I'm still the same guy who graduated high school at like 115 pounds. And that's concerning. You have to accept that your progress is going to be different from other people in order for you to actually enjoy what you're doing. So it is a negative kind of way to end talking about this, but that's kind of how you have it. There's, I would say, a good amount of information out there. And if we are to really weigh the pros versus the cons, if you can get over looking at other people on social media, as hard as that is, or taking it all with a grain of salt and just using the information that's out there, checking your sources, and making sure you have information that you can actually trust, I think this stuff is a huge, huge pro for the fitness community, for bodybuilding in general, the sport that I really like doing. And I think it's worth your time to check out what some people say about it cautiously. I will caution you on that because not everybody's right, and people will use the word optimal for just about anything nowadays. So keep the balance, strive for progress, have fun while you're doing it, enjoy the process, because at the end of the day, that's why we're all in the gym, right? We're all there for the pursuit of progress and trying to better ourselves one way or another. And I think that that's something that people nowadays miss out on entirely when you get in there, due to the idea that they think that they have to prove something about what they're doing and how it's better than everybody else and what they're doing. So that kind of concludes the video today. I hope you guys kind of liked what we were talking about, and I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you think optimal training's stupid and boo, we hate optimal training? Um, Talk to me about it. I want to hear what you have to say. I think this is a fun way of communicating with people, and I enjoy the debate, and I enjoy obviously pushing out my opinion. I'm sitting in my room in my office chair with a phone strapped to a tripod, talking to the camera. And without further ado, that'll be it. Um, my name is Mike, and until I see you guys again, make sure to be kinder than necessary. Peace.